Day 3 of the February 2000 7-day retreat in Springwater. You're walking down the driveway, there's spring water all over. Gurgling under the still snow-capped ice, gurgling of water, and then these open pools, sunlight glistening on the little waves, which go in many different directions. Animal tracks through the snow, leading right up to the water. There's a Zen saying that comes to mind: when useless things don't hang around in the mind, every day is a good day. So then the question pops up, how can I get rid of these useless things which hang around in the mind? In my mind, we say. Very possessive about ourselves. The word my is there. My pain, my mind, my stomach. With which we come to the topic for today. What is this I, this my, this mine, this me? Before starting, 2 more things are popping up in the mind. One person feeling, I really ought to bring a question into a meeting to make this time worthwhile. I didn't say this at the beginning. I think I forgot in the opening talk to mention, you don't have to bring anything to a meeting. You don't even have to come yourself. Don't worry about good questions. That sort of stilts the mind. And it creates imagery of a good questioner or a poor questioner. Worse than others, better than others. Let the question take care of itself. Or else we'll just sit quietly and listen to caw, caw, caw. Also, someone asked, my practice has been, and I'm reformulating these questions, I don't remember verbatim what anybody said. My practice has been attending to the breathing, but sometimes I just open up to all the sounds that are there, and sometimes attending to the pain sensations in the body, pain from sitting or whatever. And sort of wondering what is the right thing, or is there a right thing to do? Because as this person said, I read, you can't do everything at the same time. You have to do one thing completely. The analogy was given, which one reads, it's a beautiful one. If you dig for water, don't go into many different places. Dig in one place. Although when we dug for water here in Springwater, we dug in 80 places. Before we hit the right spring water. Almost gave up on this land because it would not perk. So don't go so much by what you read. It sits in the mind and sort of makes it rigid. Experiment with it. Now, I'm saying something, but you have to find out for yourself whether this is so. I'm not handing over truths. As far as observation here goes, you can attend to the breathing, and feel the pain and hear the caw, caw, caw all at the same time. Not by directing the attention through thought. Listen to the sounds, that's a thought. Okay, I'm listening to the sounds now. Outside, that's many thoughts which divide up this world. Or I listen inside to my painful stomach or knees. More thought, and then attending to the physical sensations. Or I must follow my breathing, that's my regular practice. Dividing up what is truly one seamless whole. So if thought isn't there directing the attention dutifully, which is a personality characteristic we have, I ought to do what's right, conditioned. If that thought is seen through and maybe quiets down, one may come upon an openness in which breathing and sensing and caw-cawing all happen simultaneously and not exclusive of each other. What is exclusive, the only thing I've found that is exclusive is, as you listen to this talk, you couldn't also listen to a talk that goes on in the next room. You may hear some talking, but to understand the meaning, either you listen here or you listen there. So, find out about this thing of whether as the breathing is there, and the aching back, there's also the dripping of icicles, or the cawing, or the winding, whatever. If the mind isn't rigidly naming everything, knowing everything, policing itself, controlling itself, which is the operation of habitual thinking. And the body goes along with this thinking. Every thought has a physical concomitant. Someone mentioned it. Person gets a little bit nervous hearing everything attributed to thought. What about this body? It's very, very active. And well, this is clear. It is so. I think we've said a million times, one thought can mobilize this whole body into fear tensions, anger, excitement, desire, pleasuring, fearing. It takes but one thought to get this body going. And sometimes it's not a thought, it's a memory, maybe a pre-verbal memory, something that's seen reminds this associative brain of past pain. So one has to be careful not to just say it's all thought, but keep mentioning as physicality. A thought is a physical occurrence. It is not something ethereal. It's a very measurable electrochemical thing causing other electrochemical reactions throughout the body. Did experiments with students. I learned that when I studied psychology, just asking the arm being wired to electrodes and measuring instruments, just asking the student to think of lifting a feather, and there was a different recording than if he was asked to think of lifting a brick or a brick of lead. And nothing happened. The student didn't do anything. He was just sitting, instructed to sit there quietly. But the thought of feather lightness or lead heaviness does something in this body. And as this body responds, with all of its tensions and contractions and juices and whatever, more thoughts are generated. I don't like this pain, or I ought to be with this pain, or what is this pain? Or why should I suffer this pain? And this thought, why should I suffer this pain, causes more tension. Because there's a conflict in it. Something that's there shouldn't be there. And this conflict manifests physically. One can come upon this if the mind is attentive, listening inwardly, and allowing the outward sounds to be there. They don't need to be shut out. So, what is this I, this me? The way the question came up last night in the group was, who is it that is aware? And the response that came from here, I can say from me, taking that lightly, we'll go into that more maybe, was, maybe this is the wrong question, because the question already implies that there is somebody there who is aware. Who asks for somebody, doesn't it? So the mind is already set in finding that somebody, which is all right. It's an ancient spiritual question. Who am I? Or who is thinking? Who's walking? Who is conflicting? Who is aching? Who is suffering? There's a very old, traditional, well-tried and used method of plumbing this assumption, this deep assumption. Most of the time we don't even think it's an assumption. We take it to be the truth that there is an I that's doing things, that's choosing things, that is avoiding things, that is desiring things, that has capacities, my memories, my talents, my beauty or my ugliness. Always referring to somebody that is I, that is me. And very defensive of this I and me. When it is questioned or hurt or attacked, there is an instant system of defenses springing up. One can observe it. Either one goes with the offenses and goes with the hurt and lives in that reactiveness, or one wonders about it. What is happening? As I feel hurt because of what you said, you were critical of me, comparing me unfavorably with somebody else. And the defensiveness. Who is defending what is a good question. If one doesn't assume one will find somebody, you don't know what you're going to find as you start an exploration. Of course, the question also, who is hearing, who is listening, or who is hurting, who is defending, interrupts sort of or can interrupt a current of flowing, or a current of reacting, of angering, or fearing. The question, who is afraid? or who is hurting, sort of is a pause in this current. And maybe one learns something, learns that the story wants to continue with the hurt. And as the story continues, the hurt continues. Maybe that can be glimpsed. But is there a question for us? What is this I that one person said, well, I choose to raise my arm. There is an I choosing, but one has to go easy in insisting on something and turn it into a question. What is really happening? It's not easy to discern because things go so fast and so many thoughts and so many feelings. So to keep a steady awareness seems very difficult. Actually, if an apple comes rolling off the counter, there's the hand when we're awake. If we're sleeping, the apple thuds on the floor and gets bruised. But if there's some wakefulness, presence, that apple rolling, and it's just amazing. I hadn't intended to raise my hand to catch this apple. It just happened out of this presence, seeing and acting, being one uninterrupted motion. But I may think right now, theoretically, well, I want to raise my arm. And here it goes. Well, you could leave that I out completely and still state the facts. The thought occurs, raise your arm, and here it goes up. There's power in thinking to act, to react. Thought results in action. Very often in reaction, it is so fast. And to that, we habitually add that I am thinking or I am raising my arm. Can we get a feel for how language-ridden this I is, language-supported? And try to get underneath the language and really observe what is taking place. We insist that we have choice. We have the choice to do this or to do that. I am a free chooser. I can choose to go for a walk, or I can choose to write another letter. What goes on? If I get off of the concept of choosing and there being a chooser, because I've never found one, all I find is thoughts, which have different weight, different pulling power or pushing power to them. The thought, I'll take a walk, has a great attraction to it, particularly when it's sunny and one doesn't feel tired, one has sat all day. The fresh air here is incredible. So, thinking of taking a walk is an attractive thought and has pulling power or pushing power. Also from past experiences, having taken walks, the beauty of the land, how well and vigorous one feels during and after the walk, etc. All of this is there in this thought, should I take a walk? Or I would like to take a walk. And then the other alternative, staying inside and writing another letter or two. And what goes on with those thoughts? As one's conditioning of finishing things. I had a father who never, ever left one letter unanswered. And he got enormous amounts of letters. He would stay up till 1 or 2 in the morning to answer all the letters and then yet do writings, whatever else he was doing. So this sort of imprinted itself. Or maybe there's some genes here, letter writing genes. Although the letter writing can be a real burden too. And one knows that if I write more letters, I'll ache more and my head will be just so thick. But it will feel good to be done with this letter writing, because if I don't, I'll carry this around with me. So there's all these thoughts may not be spread out and formulated as neatly as it's happening in the talk. But it goes on, not all spelled out. So then what happens? I either go for a walk or I write the letter. And then I say, I chose. That's language. I got up, put my shoes on and hat and went for a walk. That pull was greater than the pull to stay, or the other way around. The pull to stay and finish up with the basket was greater than to go out and enjoy the sunshine or moonshine. One could carry this further and says, as the walk takes place, does the thought come up, I really should have written that letter. This is when we get into trouble. We've chosen, quote unquote, one thing and still think of what we should have done instead. Or writing the letter and dreaming, what if I had only taken a walk? And this is how contradiction, conflict arises out of conflicting desires or conditionings. Nowhere in there is there an I doing it. It's conditioned past desires, alluring specters with great pulling power to have pleasure, to avoid pain. Oh, this organism knows all of that. It's recorded. What brings pleasure? What causes pain? And it adjusts its thinking accordingly. Recently, somebody in Germany gave me a very neat book. It's supposed to be up-to-date knowledge about the brain written by a brain researcher, but writing it fairly user-friendly, although it was even hard for me to read it all. But one thing stuck out, his saying, to a lot of people's amazement, there is no place in the brain where one can find an I or an ego. It just doesn't exist. He was not a meditator or quote-unquote spiritual person. But there is I don't know if I remember it right, a coordinating center, brings coherence into memories, past experiences coordinated, made coherent. And if that goes out of whack, then the whole behavior goes out of whack, doesn't remember right anymore. So, will one question this I thing, this me thing, and try to trace it, find out what it is, and watch it as we go? And it is most watchable when we get angry or hurt, afraid, wanting, to get out of the current of the anger and stop and wonder what is going on right now. Or who is angry? Who is wanting? And not speculate. If the question stimulates the speculative part of the brain, then one won't observe. One will just speculate, go over the files, what I know. So, can a question be addressed into the unknown, into not knowing? Start with not knowing who is heard, and watch. A question can be such an opening affair. Either it leads to the brain to know, or it opens up into not knowing, and therefore watching with a fresh energy. I don't know, so everything is available to show itself. Why did I get angry? I wanted this thing to happen, to be done in a certain way, and somebody didn't do it this way. Crossed what we could say, the energies of rightness. I wanted it this way, this is how it should have been, and that is sort of foiled. And where does this energy go that wants it done this way? It hits against an obstacle, against a resistance. Somebody else thinks this is wrong. How could anybody say it's wrong because I know it's right? To let all of this play out under some neutral, interested observation. Oh, why am I afraid? What is causing this fear? Because you could say, well, there's already something sensed in the intestines and in the heart and stomach and in the head and wherever all, which feels like fear. The body symptoms sort of sending a message to the brain. There's something must be here to be afraid of because of the way I feel. But that's entering into it late, because something got this body going to feel the way it does, contracting and heart beating faster, and what all the symptoms are that one can be in touch with. So, and maybe the thought is gone that caused this fear, but maybe it is not gone. And one will realize, remembering something that happened in the past, or having been reminded through association, this thing reminds me of something that was very painful in the past. Remember, for a long time when loud noises or airplanes flying low, this body would agitate in fear, remembering air raids. So it wasn't necessarily a verbal statement about air raids, but the body responded to loud noises that were associated with past experiences. And to wonder, to the extent that I'm afraid now, I'm using those words, it's the way we communicate, based on something that's not happening now. It's way in the past. This loud noise or this airplane has nothing to do with dropping bombs. And to be amazed how we live in the present but are triggered from past remembrances, which may also be projected in the future, into the future, what we call the future, which is just thinking of what may happen tomorrow or in 10 years or the rest of my life. An incredible preoccupation with memory, with time, what was, what will be, and keeping this body enveloped in fear symptoms, which can be felt. One can be with them, really get into them. But does this getting into these feelings and sensations bear the root of the fear, of the anger, of the desire? What is the root of it all? Are we interested? Interested to know about it, or interested to come upon it ourselves directly? One may come upon this deep, deep sense of separation. Me separated from everything and everybody else. The world. We call that the world. And here we have an opportunity to question the truth of that separation. Maybe it is an illusion that we're separate. We've heard it, we've read it, but can we probe it ourselves? What is this feeling of separation, of loneliness, of isolation, deep down? Unlovedness, rejection, but it basically deep down it's feeling separate, not at one with what's here, which turns out to be our true state. Don't believe it. I'm not trying to put one over on you. One. I'm not trying to put one over you. It's there for all of us to discover. So the fact that we talk in I terms, I'm going to have lunch in a while first, I've got to take a shower, wash my hair. Well, it happens all in and around the vicinity of this body-mind with its ability to have a coherent memory, a coherent story, constantly making this story coherent. It's constantly added to what I experienced, how good I am, how poor I am. And something makes that story coherent. And we feel, this is me. I am my story. Which springs into action when you hurt me, or when you praise me. Not there's anything wrong with being praised. I want to say this because it'll surely come up. Either doing something well or being praised for something, being paid a compliment, and I don't mean it's hypocritical, it's honest. It feels good. The body responds to those words with a good feeling energy. And then what happens? The praise, the good feeling, and is one done with it? Is it finished? Or is it now going into the head, part of the story, and then reviewing and then going over it, rerunning it? Then it becomes a separating thing, separating from this moment, which is no longer what I did, what you said. It's fresh. Let that stuff go, which really sort of goes against the body because the body wants more of the pleasure. It has this inbuilt craving for pleasure. for what is pleasurable, what feels good. Doesn't want to be interrupted in that. There's a certain, you could almost say, inertia with that, staying with that, wanting more. And yet at the same time, feeling stuck in one's fantasies. And feeling stuck in not being here is what people want. They come here, they want to be here, they want to be in the here and now. It is such an attractive notion, and maybe one has experienced it in the past. But being in the so-called here and now means letting go of the good feelings of the compliment or of the hurt. You felt it, you saw what it was, the image got dented or the image got boosted, because that's what it usually is. You see it, and then can you let go and be here again with what may seem at the moment a very sober present. Boring, somebody says, not exciting. To just be here. But it's only boring if the mind is only partially quiet, but at the same time is hankering for something remembered. Then this being here is so unexciting. So, it's a plateful. Don't have to keep chewing it and chewing it and chewing it. What is said for the moment. Although sometimes it resurfaces, sometimes at the right time, to notice something. How the story keeps running. It doesn't need to. It's all right to just breathe and listen. Feel the chair under the bottom, the hands bracing, the warmth of the sun, and breath flowing. And every day is a good day. Not as a judgment, but as a fact. We will end here for today.